Hello and welcome to Good Game, the show for gamers, by gamers. I'm Junglist.
And I'm Bajo.
Coming up in the show this week, it's moved from tabletop to desktop. Warhammer Age of Reckoning is the first and only MMO to have an Australian-based server. But is the game any good?
We meet the developer behind the new Aussie-made game, Blob.
In the first of our series on how to land a job in the games industry, we meet art designers and animators to find out how they got a foot, or should I say a pixel, in the door.
And in Backwards Compatible, we chart the history of Aussie game development from the early 80s and The Hobbit to the present day.
But first, can you guess the game for this week?
A clue. It caused massive outrage on the Good Game forums when that game was left out of a recent Backwards Compatible. Answer at the end of the show.
But first, news time. Jung exits. According to rumors reported on gaming blog Kotaku, Activision is planning a Guitar Hero spin-off called DJ Hero. Sounding similar to Konami's PlayStation rhythm game Beat Mania, DJ Hero is alleged to work in conjunction with a turntable peripheral that emulates techniques such as sampling and scratching. Kotaku also claims the game's musical charts flow around the screen in a circular fashion, as if spinning like a vinyl record. We contacted Activision Australia to confirm or deny the existence of DJ Hero, but they declined to comment. Finally, we have the numbers every World of Warcraft fan has been waiting for. 14/11/08. That's the Australian release date of Wrath of the Lich King, the second WoW expansion in 4 years, and adds content for characters to progress from level 70 to 80.
Good game!
When Mario's warm voice, strong morals, and love for a princess are all just a little bit too cute, there's only one other tradie we can turn to shake things up a bit, and his name is Wario.
Wario Land, the Shake Dimension for Nintendo Wii, is a very polished 2D platformer with the money-mad Wario taking center stage. The Shake King pirate has invaded another dimension and stolen Merfol's princess.
But Wario doesn't care. Well, that is until he hears there's a bottomless sack of coins up for grabs. His quest set, our fat greedy tradesman squeezes himself through a magical telescope in pursuit of the shiny dollar. You play this game with the Wiimote on its side, and it's actually really rewarding shaking it about to get coins out of a bag or just generally to harass enemies.
It's very much in the vein of the old Game Boy Advance and Game Boy Wario games, which is a good thing because they were the best of the series. It also kind of put me in mind of the old Mickey Mouse Disney games, especially when you start squeezing through pipes.
I think the main reason for this is that a lot of the game is hand-drawn. It's kind of retro like this. And how good is the music, especially when you need to escape a level once you've gotten to the end, or to the funky James Bond jazz music. In fact, all of the sounds and music in the game will resonate with Mario and Wario fans alike. Feel like a dancing montage, Jung?
You can. I'm chillin'.
Pick it up and play.
Happy now?
Very.
There are two great things about Wario Land, the Shake Dimension. The first one is they don't talk as much as they usually do. Wario doesn't have time to talk. Time is money. The second thing is the puzzles are usually interesting enough to keep you going, but you don't have to worry about what buttons to press. It's pick up and play at its finest.
It was a welcome thing for me, Jung. My head still hurts from braid, in a good way. Most puzzles revolve around getting coins or collectibles which are part of side missions. Often you're shown a big clue on how to get these collectibles once you're past the point of no return.
It's clever, almost smug level design because you kind of have to come back to the levels anyway because you can't move on to the next level without enough coins to buy the island's map.
I didn't like that, Jung. There's enough gameplay here to last the distance, so why force me to repeat levels? Can you believe, though, that this is rated PG because it contains mild gambling? I was annoyed, Jung, that this wasn't in widescreen. I mean, surely the Wii can handle it, and it makes me think that the game was designed years and years ago before widescreen came about. All in all, though, borders aside, it's a pretty fun and standard platforming adventure. I'm giving it 7 out of 10 rubber chickens.
Without the Wiimote, it wouldn't really be the game it is, and despite the forced replays, I enjoyed the ride too, Bajo. I'm giving it 7.5 out of 10 rubber chickens. For most gamers, making games for a living is a dream come true. Take animation and art design, for example. It's vital in creating the look and atmosphere of a game, and can be a pretty rewarding career choice. So how did you get your start in the industry?
I started at Fine Arts School at Curtin University in Western Australia as a painting major, so I think it's important to always have a very strong art background when you come into animation. I really wanted to focus on character animation, so I moved to Vancouver and studied at the Vancouver Film School.
I've got no formal training in the games industry. I've got a honours degree in molecular biology. It wasn't really as fun day to day as I was looking for, so I put a show reel together of work that I'd done and just sent it to anyone I could find.
I've been going now for about 8 years, and I have a degree in photography, and I ended up doing all this 3D work. Then basically just saw this ad, and Chrome was hiring, and I think I got the job because no one else applied.
I started off basically doing, I guess, unpaid work, work experience work for a sort of a small company, and basically, I guess, cut my teeth doing that and working really hard for about 8 months with no pay and no reward to really just try to get into the industry.
What kind of person makes a good game artist?
The first thing you probably need to be a good artist is a good eye. By looking at a particular thing, you know that it's good, and you know that it works. And then the other thing is just a constant drive to want to excel in your chosen specialty. So if you've got an artist and you love making vehicles and vehicles are your thing, then you are solely dedicated to making the best vehicles on the planet.
Well, I think there's probably no one personality type or type of person that would make a good animator. I think you've got sort of your introverted actors who can act through a character, you know, by essentially puppeteering them. Then you'll have other people who are a lot more technically minded and maybe better suited for sort of very realistic sort of animation. But a lot of it is down to observation and someone who's just passionate about animation.
How hard is it to break in these days?
The industry is very competitive, and so because it's an exciting industry, and you know, creative work is a very rewarding way to earn money. So you find that there's lots of people trying to get in, and the guys who are in aren't going to give up their positions easily. So you have to be focused. You have to produce a very good show reel. Your work speaks for itself, basically.
The thing that makes a show reel good is the ability to target what you're actually trying to go for. So if you're a modeller, you want to show really good modelling, and it's always quality over quantity.
My show reel is literally 34 seconds, and it is just animation and nothing else. And that's including credits, 34 seconds. For animation specifically, rendering doesn't matter, lighting doesn't matter. It can be a play blast straight out of your software. Doesn't matter at all, just as long as the actual animation is really good.
I'm living a life I have no wish to live.
The number one piece of advice I would give to any artist who wants to start in this field is draw, 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 draw. Always draw, because although it is 3D art and 3D animation, having very strong art skills will get you 90% of the way.
It is a lot of hard work, and it is a lot of long hours, you know, but it is very rewarding at the end of it. I mean, especially when you see a working game such as Bioshock or Tomb Raider, all of that hard work does pay off.
Don't give up. Don't take no for an answer, and if you really want it, then just go after it and do it.
Over the coming weeks, we'll be looking at other roles on a game development team and what it takes to get that break into the industry. But now, it's time for Fatal Rage of Conflict.
Fatal Rage has been edited for Australian video gaming audiences.
Round 1. Fight.
All right, what did you want to show me? Oh, nothing. Just my new perfected Tiger Fist.
Tiger Fist?
That was incredible. I'm really impressed. Oh my God! What? Your arm! My favorite arm. Now it's gone. And it hurts. What do I do? What do I do? I'm in pain. Get me some painkillers, idiot. Okay. Come on, I'm hurting here. Give me some morphine.
There's no morphine, just a note.
Ooh, what's it say?
This medicinal content has been removed to adhere to Australian rating standards.
It says, this medicinal
I
content...
heard the disembodied voiceover, idiot. Now dial 99911. Get a doctor.
Did somebody call a doctor? It's me, Dr. Frickin' Mario.
Not you again.
Can you help him, doctor?
Well, I ain't a real doctor. Played Trauma Center a couple of times, though.
Good enough for me.
Let's see what we got here. Can't see a thing here. It's all pixely. Sorry, pal. Can't do nothing till yours gets an R rate.
Well, what can you do with an M rating? Oh, you can get...
Dude, that was totally R-rated.
Yup.
It didn't look medicinal at all.
Nope, it won't.
Let's do it again.
Sure.
Awesome!
Good game.
John, what do you think of when I say great Aussie icons?
Ah, that's easy. Vegemite, meat pies, Bondi Beach, the Hills Hoist, Stubbies, Thongs, and of course, Bert Newton.
Well, what about video games?
Bert Newton's in a video game?
Australia has an amazing history of pioneering developers and classic games. From humble beginnings, where a couple of guys working out of their bedrooms could program a hit title, the growth of Australian games development has been phenomenal. While today's massive teams and multi-million-dollar budgets can amaze us with intelligent and innovative games like Bioshock and Blob, did you know it all started decades ago with a text adventure? Hailing from Melbourne, Beam Software is the great-granddaddy of Australian game development. In fact, Jung wasn't even born when Beam released The Hobbit in 1982.
The Hobbit was surprisingly sophisticated for its time. Events happened in real time, and other characters such as Gandalf would move around the world independently of the player. It went on to be the first Australian-developed game to sell over 1 million copies.
Beam followed this success with The Way of the Exploding Fist, a pioneer of the one-on-one fighting genre. As the industry embraced 8-bit and 16-bit generations of consoles, Beam continued to produce the goods. Classic games like Super Smash TV, Shadowrun, and MechWarrior for the Super Nintendo are proof of their status as Australia's most prominent developer of the era.
Into the 1990s, Australian developers tended to find more success on the PC. Brisbane's Oren sent shockwaves through the real-time strategy genre in 1997 with Dark Reign. In many ways ahead of its time, Dark Reign featured a realistic line-of-sight system and also introduced waypoints and production queues. The days of mindless tank rushing were thankfully over, and its influence is still being felt in today's best RTS games.
Units liberated.
At the same time, over in Adelaide, Ratbag Games was working on a spectacular graphics engine that took full advantage of the nascent 3D accelerator video cards. The first game, Power Slide, established Ratbag as experts in the racing genre. After breaking into the American market with the Dirt Track Racing series, Ratbag were bought by Midway, only to be closed down by the publisher a mere 4 months later. In another tragic tale, Oren never managed to repeat the global success of Dark Reign, despite spotting a lucrative niche with their Trains simulation series. Earlier this year, the studio laid off most of its workforce after the failure of its ambitious MMO Fury, claimed to be the most expensive game ever produced in this country.
As a sports-mad country, you would think that Australia would have produced countless games based on our favorite national pastimes. However, Aussie Rules is the only Aussie sport to have made much of an impact, even if the quality of the games themselves were closer to a rushed behind than a soaring six-pointer. Blue Tongue's AFL Finals Fever in the 90s, and Transmission Games' more recent AFL Live series may not have been premiership winners, but they proved popular enough at the time.
Of course, no talk of the great Aussie gaming icons would be complete without a nod towards Australia's only homegrown video game mascot.
Clue? It's not this.
Correct. It's Ty the Tasmanian Tiger, Chrome Studios' Outback-themed platformer from 2002. Ty's girlfriend is a dingo named Shazza, and quite frankly, that alone makes this game worthy of its place as a great Aussie icon. Perhaps the best game ever made to feature anal probing is Destroy All Humans. an amusing parody of an alien invasion in which the player is tasked with terrorizing the hapless human population. It was developed by the Twisted Minds at Pandemic Studios in Brisbane. Still in Brisbane, the Creative Assembly are one of the world's finest purveyors of deep, complex strategy games. Medieval 2 took the Total War series to a new level, combining turn-based empire building with thrilling real-time 3D battles, and fans can enjoy even more with the Kingdom's expansion pack.
One of Australia's unsung development heroes is Steve Faulkner from Infinite Interactive. He got his start at SSG, where he created the uber-hardcore strategy of Warlords. Now, though, he's better known as the designer of Puzzle Quest, which is clearly the jewel in his crown.
To Canberra now, we drop in on Irrational Games, now known as 2K Australia. Irrational has forged an enviable reputation amongst PC gamers, thanks to the 1-2 punch of the highly acclaimed Freedom Force and its sequel, Freedom Force vs. the Third Reich. Irrational, in partnership with its sister studio in Boston, USA, went on to produce Tribes, Vengeance, and SWAT 4 again on the PC. But their big breakout hit was, of course, BioShock. One of the most well-regarded games of all time, BioShock's peerless art, narrative, and design exemplifies the incredible talent currently working in the games industry in Australia.
Now let's raise a toast to our great Aussie gaming icons.
Blue Tongue is a Melbourne-based development company with over 10 years' experience in the business. Their latest game, Blob, for the Nintendo Wii, is due for release next week, so we thought we'd pay them a visit.
Dateline, Chroma City, where a battle of truly blobular proportions is taking place.
De Blob started off as a student game, so how did you guys get your hands on it?
It's a really interesting story, you know, because I think when you consider that it started out as a Dutch student project. It was made for the city of Utrecht by the School of Art and Design there. And they created this kind of interesting kiosk demo that was it's all about this bizarre alien that had crash landed in the city, and he was sort of rolling around, crushing people and painting buildings, and it had this really sweet, pure design at the heart of it. And one of my colleagues up in the Brisbane studio saw it online and posted it to a bunch of us, and we all started looking at it.
It fits into a vibe, though, doesn't it, of games, a genre, in a way?
What we're definitely trying to do is embrace the philosophy that Nintendo kind of laid out when they brought the Wii to the world, which was they believe everyone can be a gamer, and I think that was a particularly bold statement they made at E3 2007. And so I think that is something that makes all developers sort of sit back and think, well, how do we actually do that? What is it in a game that is going to make it appealing to everyone, and why are we trying to identify certain market segments that are going to be embracing this game? So I think when you're talking about the vibe that Blob creates, it's a very relaxing vibe. It's a vibe that kind of sits very nicely in your family environment. You're getting this nice creative rush, this sense of satisfaction that you get from having a blank canvas that you can paint. And so I think that's kind of different. One of the things that really inspired me early on, I was listening to ABC Radio, and this is a bizarre story, but I was listening to Crystal Gore, right, Al Gore's daughter, and she had written for Futurama, and she was saying one of the cool things about working with Matt Groening was the fact that he says when you're writing for cartoons, you write for adults because you get the kids for free. And so that's very much a philosophy that I think has informed Blob. It's written with a very Australian flavour, and I don't want to say that it's got, any kind of wobble board or, obvious reference to marsupials in it, but it's in the same way that GTA is so clever, right? It's a game made in Leith, right? And yet it's speaking to the American experience. And I think a lot of that subtlety is lost in the massive storm of marketing that precedes every version of Grand Theft Auto, but it's an incredibly clever game. Not that I'm saying that GTA and Blob are, really should be mentioned in the same breath. They're very different experiences, but I think there is a level of craftsmanship that goes into it that is driven by, the local experience and the local flavour.
What's going on with development in Australia?
I look at local development and I think that there are huge obstacles that they need to kind of overcome in the short-term and long-term future. That quaint village industry idea of, Australian development that existed and was, I think, founded in Melbourne by Melbourne House is well and truly over, right? And it is a brutal business world out there, and it's a very difficult environment to compete in. And I think that the studios that are still, battling to get products to market are really doing a good job and fighting an uphill battle in many cases.
Warhammer is the massively popular tabletop game now moved to the desktop in the form of a massively multiplayer online role-playing game in Warhammer Age of Reckoning.
And no amount of dice or paintbrushes will help you here. Will you choose the High Elves or the Dark Elves, the Dwarves or the Greenskins, Chaos or the Empire? All races of Warhammer forgot what peace was long ago, and now need new recruits to fight through 40 levels of high magic, cold ones, flagellants, blood gods, and of course, war!
Warhammer's a really interesting idea, right? There was these nutters in England, and they lived in sheds, and they were there carving these little men, and they were going, leave us alone, we're just making soldiers. And then they sold 65 million of them. And before you know it, they were rich. And whereas before, they lived with their mums and worked in sheds, now they live with their mums with big swimming pools, with enormous sheds. And they just sit there going, we love our game, it's brilliant.
Initial impressions weren't good. The first few levels contain the same uninspired quests we've seen 1,000 times before, and it's the casual part of the game, but how many times can you collect 10 spider eggs or 10 boar tusks or retrieve a dwarf's lucky hammer before you're over it?
Luckily, you won't have to do this for very long. Like any good hobby, Warhammer knows how to manage your enthusiasm. In tabletop, if you ever got tired of playing the game, you'd go and paint some figurines. Or if you got tired of that, you'd go and crunch some numbers or make some scenery. Warhammer the MMO does the same thing. It makes up for its stock standard PvE by sprinkling bits of PvP throughout the level grind, and this is where it starts to shine.
There are plenty of quests to kill real players, complete objectives, and you even get good experience from a player versus player kill. Each class is fairly specialized though, so don't expect to be doing too much on your own. It's all about your role in the group.
If you're tired of slugging it out in the open world, you can join a PvP scenario at any time, starting from level 1. These usually involve capturing points or flags and give you decent experience for a win.
When you've had enough of these scenarios, you can take part in one of the game's many public quests, which is a shared objective in a certain area. They're usually accompanied by a scripted event, and those who contribute the most are rewarded with the best gear in the game for your level.
Public quests hit that magical sweet spot that appeals to both the hardcore and casual gamer. It works great as a social tool or as a bit of friendly competition. I found myself going well beyond the Call of Duty on these and, dare I say it, having fun in PvE.
As you progress through the game, more and more of the landscape is designated to PvP, until you eventually sack an enemy city and kill their king.
This sense of closure is rare in these games, where the idea of winning is usually dangled in front of you like a carrot on a stick.
Tired of it or not, the question has to be asked, how are you going to compete with World of Warcraft? We put that very thing to Mythic Vice President Mark Jacobs.
When we were trying to get Dark Age of Camelot, our first game done, going against Microsoft, with the Acheron, with EverQuest, with Sony, with EA, with Ultima. If you were looking for a non-competitive situation, that wouldn't have been it. We've had a tremendous amount of time so far to work on the game. We've had great support in terms of, budgets. So this situation, a lot less scary.
Mark and his team have paid good attention to Warhammer canon. They've got the architecture done perfectly, the land looks as it should, and it's a dream come true for a tabletop fan. However, here we have a problem. Tabletop is full of lots of little units that look the same, and the MMO is no exception. Classes are easily identifiable, but there isn't much to distinguish you as an individual.
Obviously, we haven't reached the highest level, so things could change in endgame, but I think canon could actually work against them here, Jung. Take the warrior priest, for example, who's always had the coolest gear since forever, but if you wanted to change to an axe halfway through, you just can't. You're stuck with this hammer all game.
Every class also has their counterpart on the other side. For example, the Sword Master is very similar to the Black Orc, and I actually thought this was a good thing, Bajo. I mean, this kind of symmetry pretty much guarantees balance in PvP.
Warhammer will be setting up more than one server in Melbourne, Australia. That's right, for the first time, an MMO shows Aussies some low latency love. Not even the Brisbane-developed game Fury did this.
No more oceanic servers that just change the clock. No more Americans joining those servers to run circles around you. Matter of fact, that's what we'll be doing to the rest of Asia. Sorry, Singapore. Better luck next time.
It's good that we have these extra cities and complex siege battles to look forward to, but it's a bit of a bummer that we're going to have to wait a while before we see any new races. If you're into PvP, it's definitely worth checking this one out. I'm giving it 8 out of 10 rubber chickens.
At first glance, it's got the interest, the substance, and the patchwork flow to survive the rough first few months of an MMO lifecycle. But in that time, Mythic need to work to their strengths of endgame siege PvP, and that's exactly what they'll do. I'm giving it 8.5 chaotic rubber chickens.
Good game.
So gamers, did you guess the game for this week?
It was, of course, Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, released for the Xbox in 2003. It's just one of the many games in the Star Wars canon.
The game was set 4,000 years before the original trilogy, and players could take on the role of a customizable character, which gravitated towards the light or the dark side depending on the choices you made in-game.
Knights of the Old Republic was a massive success, all the more reason to leave it out of our backwards compatible on Star Wars games.
Next week, we review one of the most enduring and popular sports game franchises, FIFA, which introduces 10 vs 10 online multiplayer.
Plus, in their bid to stamp out the weak, the Double the Fist team challenged us to a Ruffle Cup.
We thought we'd leave you this week with a short musical number.
Guitar Hero World Tour is the only band simulator that'll be performing in Australia this year. Take it away, Bajo.